Hi, it's Paul from Wolf Software Systems Limited. Another exciting video for technical people and very boring for non-technical people. But sometimes non-technical people watch them and quite enjoy them, I think. Anyway, so this is our website, wolf.uk.com. Very easy to remember. So I'm going to talk today about Galera clusters and little Galera Gothchas, I like to call them. Things that can stop Galera working properly. So on this cluster, this is one of our clusters running in Frankfurt in Germany, in various different buildings. It's in one big data center, but there are different buildings. But we've also got other clusters in other where we back up to Dusseldorf and. So anyway, that's best beside the point. So I'm going to talk about our cluster here. We've got a 5-node Galera cluster and some of the issues that we've faced and how we resolved them. Mainly me. So one of the issues, so we have this thing called Wolf Territories Grid, which is a big virtual world, and at the moment we're running some rolling restarts on it. And Wolf Territories Grid uses a 5-node Galera cluster, and a Galera cluster that's 5 MariaDB MySQL servers, and they're all in a 5-node cluster. And then we have one that is for writing only, and then that populates the data out to the other 4 nodes. And then and so one of the really important things is latency. So it's no good if you create an object and save it and pop it on the ground, and the system goes to write to the database, and the database doesn't get the writes out before it gets read again. So for instance, if you were to give something to someone else and they resed it or created it in their virtual part of the virtual world, if it hasn't been written to the database, it doesn't exist yet. So that was a real issue, and it's really down to milliseconds. So the first thing, the reason this is one of our database nodes. So I'm just going to pull it up. This is it is in Proxmox. There's some things I like. I don't mind running in Proxmox, and databases is one of them. I don't run object storage in Proxmox. I've never got Minio object storage to work properly in Proxmox. I just think, especially if you're running other things on the node, there's just too much going on for my liking. We prefer to. So this is one of our object storage clusters. Find the monitoring. There's the monitoring. This is a new. Yeah, so this is one of our object storage clusters. It's running on bare metal. There's some things that just do not virtualize object storage, in my humble opinion. What Minio does is it just needs that extra. Anyway, back to MariaDB. So one of the issues we noticed was, so if you should do this quite a lot. I'm hoping that we might even see one. No, we haven't. There it is. This little error message here. Now this is, I'll tell you why that you can see that. It says unable to report write set to cluster. Okay, now it doesn't mean it won't do it. It just means it'll do it later. And you notice there's only one of them, and that was at on May the 3rd this morning at 5:23 in the morning, and that's because we are doing it. There's a bit of maintenance going on. So that happens when something happens in MySQL. So what I'm going to do is just log into it. Look at me. Okay, and I'm going to show you this. So what this basically means is that the flow control kicked in. Okay, and that happens when things get the writes get kind of behind, and the thing has the node has to stop and write. And actually it doesn't happen on our. I'm quite surprised to even see the message, to be honest. If you see that message, if you see it all the time, do not ignore it. Okay, it is only it says note or warning, it will say sometimes. And there's a different message which means the same thing. It's not writing out. So if you log into your database server, and don't worry, you can't access any of our servers. They're all on the local networks. So and issue this command, show status like flow control, and look at this number here. You see where it says WSREP flow control paused. Okay, and you see ours is absolutely tiny. Okay, that means that only for 0.0006% of the time we are actually pausing. It's actually, this is absolutely tiny. This is not causing an issue, and actually the flow control is not being blocked because it's so fast. So what you can do is, what I always like to do is do flush status first, and then do this command, show status like WSREP and see what you've got. You see it's gone to 0. And then we'd like give it 10 minutes and go and have another look and see what it comes up to. Generally, it sits about 0.006. I like it at 0.005 and lower. You will have something in there. I've never seen an installation where you get 0. Maybe if this was on bare metal, we'd get nearly 0. But each node is not actually in the same building. It's actually in a different building. So, you know, we're kind of preempting the idea that we might lose a building. I've never seen it happen, to be honest. This is a proper, this is a proper data center. You sit still at 0. It's fine. So what do you do if that number's quite high? If you've got like 0.1 or 0.05 or something like that on WSREP flow control ports, right? The first thing to do is to go look at the resources that you've got for that server. So in this case, we've got 30 CPUs available. Okay, now that's a really important though, so remember that. So look at how many CPUs you've got available, and we're going to go into the console. We're going to look at exit out of here. ZDC MySQL. See MariaDB conf. Let's have a look at the 60 Galera conf file. Now you see I've got some settings in here. Okay. And this is the one I want you to look at. You see where it says WSREP slave threads. Now, on some versions of MariaDB, that's 1. And that will cause that issue because it's only got 1 thread to write to. So I tend to go for double the amount of processors. So if we've got 30 processors, it's got 60 threads. Now, the thing is about this as well is, you hardly, if we go back to, just go back to summary here. Look how little usage it's getting. 3% of 30 threads. There's hardly any memory usage, a couple of gig. This database is only about nearly 90 gigs, so it's not actually that big. It's about 3 years old. It's got various things on it. Going back to the console, let's have a look at this again. So, because I've got 30 cores, I can have 60 threads. I like having this setting. It's kind of a good thing. I like to have that kind of fragment size, and this is another one that's important. It depends on what version of MariaDB you're using. Is set your F. So this is the limit at which it'll pause the replication to keep up with it. And then there's the lock mode, and that's it really. I've got quite a simple setup, as you can see. There's nothing that complicated in it, but this configuration with these settings gives me that incredible. Go back to here. Let's go and see how it's doing. Really low latency. This password's so long. There you go. Gives me that. It's just gone up to 0.03, but that always happens when you do a demo, doesn't it? Okay, it's going down. You can see it's going down. Now the reason for that is actually at the moment we're restarting the whole of the grid, and that's thousands of regions, and that's thousands of database accesses. So it is going to have, you see it's going down. After probably an hour or two, it'll actually go down to nothing. Let's just see if we might actually even see some more of those messages. Yeah, there's another one, 523, 553. That will settle down once the rolling restart's finished, because at the moment he's hammering the database. Which is fine, but in fact it's quite good that I'm actually doing this demo while I'm hammering the database. So another thing we do, so that's gotcha number 1. Gotcha number 2 is we used to use a HA proxy to proxy. So because we've got 5 nodes, we could actually process the data into all 5 nodes. But we found that it wasn't as good as there's something called maxscale, which we love and we use. And so what I'm going to do, let me pull up a region server. So what we do is on every single node container, we have a copy of maxscale running. And you might go, why do you do that? Because if we have, so we actually have this one as well. This is like a general purpose maxscale installation. So what maxscale does is it manages your Galera cluster in the sense that it provides connections. So in my case, you can see we've got 5 connections, 1 master, 4 slaves. If the master was to go down for any reason, I won't show you because we are running some heavy load at the moment. So you see there's only a couple of connections on we've got like 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 connections running from this particular little Proxmox container, but every Proxmox container that uses the database has this on it, just about. Some of them do use the general purpose load balancer, but the beauty of it is that if another server goes down and the maxscale load balancer is on it, that means everything's gone down. Whereas if, because of this, if regions 11 goes down, then, well, it's not going to access the database anyway. But because we've installed maxscale on regions 11, regions 11 uses 127.0.0.1 to access the database through maxscale, which means there's no latency. It's really fast because it's not having to go to another server, it's not having to go across a network. It starts at the point where it says, okay, what servers have we got? And then it will read and write from those servers. Now, actually, in our case, we have the master is actually the write node, and we don't read from it. We only write to it. And then the master then writes out and keeps the other 5 up to date. If I was to shut down node 1 right now, maxscale would automatically select another node as a master, and right across our cluster, it would select say node 3 or node 2, whichever one it thinks is the most appropriate and running the fastest. That's what it'll switch to, and then when the other node comes back online, it'll do what's called an SST state transfer thingy, and it will make sure that both that the node that comes back online is in sync with the rest of the cluster. Now, the problem with that is that if you don't change it, on older versions of MariaDB, I don't know about newer ones, but it defaults to rsync, which is dreadfully slow and actually knocks out 2 nodes. So you do need to change your SST method to Galera Cluster, to MariaDB backup. Okay, and I'm pretty sure it's actually in the config, and you need to do it on all of them. You can actually do it. You can grep Galera MariaDB star. Oh, it's not in there. Okay. I can't spell this morning. Very early. Okay, somewhere in the config. So professional. I should have looked it up first. Somewhere in the config, you can specify what SST mode the Galera cluster will use. Make sure it's set to, if you're using Pacona, use extra backup. If you're using MariaDB backup, it's fabulous. It will literally, okay, the 2 nodes come out of the cluster. What will actually happen is, the node that's being added will obviously have no data on it, because all of the data, it'll just wipe the data on it and start again. The node that's going to become a donor to it with a MariaDB SST will be down for like a millionth of a second, in fact. But in fact, Galera maxscale won't bring it back online until the replication is complete. It'll bring them all back in. We love it. We can move nodes around different servers. We can shut down nodes. We can upgrade nodes. We can do all kinds of things, and maintain the database integrity across the 5 nodes. It's really good. It's really good. So the only thing I'd say is, if you've got slow servers, I'd have less nodes, 3 nodes, because remember, it's got to replicate. Any writes have got to be replicated across the whole cluster. If you've got slow networking, if you've got slow servers, take that in consideration. Otherwise, you will be getting these messages. Normally, we don't get any at all of these messages. System CTL status MySQL. You might be going, why don't I just do cursor up? Yeah, you see, we've had 2 of those, and that'll stop now. Why don't I just cursor up? Because system CTL restart MySQL is very similar to system CTL status MySQL, and I have before gone up and thought it was status and hit enter and it's restart, and I don't want to restart these. And you don't want to restart database nodes unless you really, really, really have to. I much prefer to leave them, and I know you might say, oh, this is quite an old version, you should upgrade it, but anything like upgrades and things like that, I've got a real thing about upgrades, is that some people like upgrade stuff that's working really well, and they do the upgrade and it breaks. So I'm very reticent to do upgrades. I prefer to, unless there's a real issue, if we've got something running really, really nice, and especially MariaDB, it's really funny. I've even on big commercial setups, I've seen some quite old versions of MariaDB running in their clusters, because if a cluster goes wrong, we've got to restore a backup, and backups take time to restore. If a node goes wrong in a cluster, if I want to set up another node right now, I basically restore the backup we've got a backup of an empty node, so I'd restore that, set up the network, change the configs on all the others to see the new node, restart it. It would come up, it would do, one of the other nodes would go offline while it did this. You see, it would do its old joining and linking, and then it would all be done. It's good. So yeah, so definitely have a look at maxscale. It's fabulous. It's a really brilliant piece of software in terms of managing it. I'd like to use Galera Manager actually to manage all this, because it's a nice web interface, but unfortunately there's some kind of bug in it which means it won't work on a local network properly, and they expect all the nodes to be out of the public network. And any database administrator will tell you, if you have MySQL sitting on a public network, it's just a constant barrage of attempts on it. I'd rather not do that. I'd rather have the cluster on a local network, and then maybe a VPN, and if we need to get into it from outside, we VPN to the local network. That way we protect ourselves. If the databases are not actually available to the internet, they can't be hacked. There's just no way, unless someone hacked your VPN or something. But again, we've got an internal VPN, so that's cool. So I prefer, my view of everything is, if you can keep it on the local network, keep it on the local network. Hope that's helpful and not too boring. So our website is wolf.uk.com. Please come along if you need our services, or you want to have a chat. Even if you just want to have a chat, just go down and fill in this form here. You can snapshot that will give us our contact details. We do a lot with AI, or you can chat with Charlie, our AI, and he'll book an appointment with you for us to do a Google Meet or something like that. We do everything. We build websites, mobile apps, hosting, AI, machine learning, Node-RED, cluster management, anything you really want. We love doing it. So have a really, really lovely Saturday. I'm off with my band having a play. www.wolf.uk.com.